Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me today as part of the Women in Standards Learning Series. Today, I'm joined by Darlene Allen, the National President of the National Association for Parliamentarians. Darlene, welcome and thank you for speaking with us today. In your own words, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at NAP?
I am Darlene T. Allen, a professional registered parliamentarian. I have been a member of NAP since 1998. I live in Washington, D.C., and I serve as the national president. NAP was founded on June 23rd, 1930, in Kansas City, Missouri, by Dr. Silas W. Longan, Mrs. E.A. Holmes, Mrs. Robert E. McDonald, Mrs. George Stevenson, and Dr. Catherine Allen. Our mission statement is that NAP is a society dedicated to educating leaders throughout the world in effective meeting management through the use of parliamentary procedure. Our vision is to provide parliamentary leadership to the world.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And what a great introduction. Darlene, a Women in Standards member recently shared a story with me about how their standards developing organization hired a parliamentarian to assist them in addressing some conflicts that they were encountering in their consensus group and how helpful it was to them. For those listening that may not know, what is a parliamentarian and what do they do?
Well, parliamentarian is a parliamentary meeting or parliamentary procedure consultant. We have expertise in interpreting and applying the rules of order for meetings. These rules do enable groups to discuss and determine actions to be taken efficiently and fairly. The main function of the parliamentarian is to give advice on parliamentary procedure, and we do it for the presidents, the officers, the committees, and members. Parliamentarians can also assist organizations as a convention parliamentarian, bylaws consultant, advisor to the board, expert witnesses, a professional presiding officer, training in parliamentary procedure, and election supervising and meeting strategist. And the last but the most important, as a script writer in order to help a novice presiding officer.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I had no idea they served so many roles. Are there many parliamentarians working in the industry?
Yes, there are. The NAP has about 4,500 members. And of those 400, 500 members, we have two levels of credentialing: registered parliamentarians and professional registered parliamentarians. There are about 730 of those members, of our members, who have attained either the RP or the PRP credential in order to serve as consultants to help organizations.
Are there standards that parliamentarians follow? Is that something that the NAP develops?
Yes, we do have standards. Parliamentarian standards are contained in our NAP body of knowledge, and that outlines what skills that are needed for a consultant to have in order to be able to help organizations, to help as a member, as a leader, or as a consultant. And they cover different service and skill levels or domains for the various parts of parliamentary procedure that may be needed for an organization, such as helping an organization with motions and meeting related procedures, governing documents, helping organizations to better understand and to be able to adhere to their bylaws or constitution and any rules they may have.
You read my mind because I was just thinking, oh, how you're very familiar with standards clearly. So how can parliamentarians support that standards development process? And you listed a few, but are there any other elements that you'd like to note?
Well, we are always looking for new opportunities to help develop standards. And I think part of it is to be able to have the benchmark or a gold standard by which to work with. Our new reality, this virtual or electronic environment that we're working in, creates challenges in itself. So we're constantly working in order to do different things about that, and the different situations that may be necessary to operate in this particular environment.
Hmm. Yeah, very challenging right now, definitely. And certainly great that you noted it. And I'm wondering if an organization did want to reach out to a parliamentarian and ask for their assistance, how would they go about finding and selecting one?
One organization could go to our website, www.parliamentarians.org, and there's a link in the upper right hand corner on the homepage that says Find a professional parliamentarian. There, they would go through after clicking on the search criteria to be able to put into the field. So if they were looking for a parliamentarian in a particular state, or if they wanted someone that had proficiency in bylaws or script writing or presiding, they would put those into the fields and that would narrow the choices. Or they could call the national office and discuss the information with the staff there. And the staff would be able to assist them by putting out an RFP to all parliamentarians, all of the professional registered parliamentarians. And then there would be a response that would go directly to the organization that is looking for the parliamentarian.
Excellent. So you heard it here that they're here to help those standards developers out there that would like to incorporate a parliamentarian. A good note. And thank you for including that website too. And certainly we will include it in the posting of this recording. Now, how could a parliamentarian support the standards development process? Maybe you can dig into that a bit deeper for us.
Well, again, we can help by identifying the new standards and the new opportunities that are there. And basically, we've been working through this period of the pandemic. It's been trial and error. One particular situation that may work for one organization does not necessarily work for another. So it can be tailored to what an organization needs in order to be successful. But the standards are important because they help an organization decide what is necessary in order to have an efficient meeting, and a meeting where at the end everyone feels as though they had a fair opportunity to speak and participate, and they got to go home and everyone is still smiling.
Well, I like that note because, in fact, in our outreach to standards developers, a common issue that they face are various types of conflict that arise between participants. You know, when an issue between participants occurs, is there a procedure or a process that you could suggest that standards developers try?
Well, basically, it is the role of the person that is presiding or the chair of the committee to facilitate an orderly meeting. And in Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, the 12th edition is what is the current edition. There is material written that they could use as a guide, but the basic thing that a presiding officer needs to know is the members should feel that he or she is fair, that they're consistent, and they're neutral in decisions. And when those situations flare up, the members are talking through or to the chair and not to each other. So the presiding officer should do what it takes to get the attention off of each other and have them speak directly with the presiding officer, and use third person words when they're discussing, not calling names, because sometimes someone calls your name that inflames you and you feel as though you need to respond. The member that just spoke or something in that effect will help to neutralize the situation. But it is the presiding officer's responsibility to keep the meeting fairly going and to keep down as much confusion as he or she possibly can.
Yeah, an important note of that officer's role in the meeting. And as a follow-up, sometimes the written requirements for process can be vague or can be open to interpretation. We've heard this from a lot of SDOs. In these cases, should organizations choose the interpretation that is in their own favor or defer to the other party? And how might a parliamentarian assist in this situation?
Well, a parliamentarian could help by giving advice. The parliamentarian would review their governing documents. By that, I mean their bylaws or their constitution, any standing rules that they may have, and their rule book or their parliamentary authority. And from there, the parliamentarian would give advice to the presiding officer and the members. Ultimately, it is up to the members to decide upon the interpretation that they will follow. That is one of their rights, but the parliamentarian can certainly guide them by letting them know what's there and what the consequences are if you choose this, that, or the other. But it is the body's decision to make in the end.
Okay, well, very helpful, certainly, and definitely from an organization that relies on standards, we want to make sure we get that language right. And I'm curious, during the past year, many standards development organizations and really businesses in general have had to move to a virtual environment, having meetings just like this over online platforms. And some have noted that this has created issues both with voting, but confirming quorum, ensuring people have a voice and a chance to speak up. Can you share your thoughts and ideas on how organizations can approach these unique challenges?
Yes, well, every situation is different. And actually, it is based upon how large the meeting will be. For smaller meetings, that's less than about a dozen people, believe that you can be less formal. But the larger the meeting gets, the more formal you have to be. It would be best, I believe, if you had a team of people to work with, a team that's working on the technology, that way that as people are having connection issues, a team is handling that, a team that is working on the members that are coming into the meeting, logging on. A lot of organizations are moving toward having a pre-registration. That way, you know ahead of time who's going to be there. You can ask questions about their name, their email addresses, whether or not they're a member or a guest, so that that information is pre-populated and the person that's keeping track of the roll is able to know when the person comes on. So that helps with the quorum because you know exactly who's there and whether or not they're a member, and having a part of the team, a group that is monitoring the chat, because there's a lot that goes on in the chat. You get into a meeting and everyone's so happy to be there, and especially if the cameras are engaged and the chat gets filled up pretty quickly. There may be a rule that you have to put in place that says once the meeting begins that you should only be using the chat to make motions or through discussion, and the other stuff you either do ahead of the meeting or once the meeting closes. So it seems almost unfriendly to have those type of rules, but it helps the meeting to flow more efficiently because the presiding officer is aware of what's going on when a member is trying to seek recognition and they've written in the chat, I would like to speak or something to that effect. But having those rules in place does indeed help the meeting. But voting is usually a big issue, I find, with organizations. And if you have guests there, you have to be a bit creative. Either you're going to use an outside platform and all the members have been given a link and they are able to vote outside of the environment that you're in. Or lately, we've been noticing that organizations have been either sending non-members back to the waiting room or a breakout room while voting occurs. So we're learning different ways how to handle this and to adjust to that situation, but voting is very important, that members get a right to vote and the other members who are guests, that they just enjoy being guests and they don't have the burden of having to vote and make decisions.
Such good tips. So a tech support for sure. I think we're all learning how to use these different platforms, and having that kind of support is always great. And a good tip for everyone on voting, maybe a third platform or a link to a voting site for the members. So a good one to take away. And I'm curious, with all of these changes, and certainly there's new technology out there and everything's kind of evolving into a world of innovation. How do you see the role of parliamentarians evolving in this tech-heavy environment?
Well, our role is certainly evolving. Where it used to be, we were giving parliamentary advice. We are now finding ourselves giving advice on the electronic platforms. You go in and you offer, oh, maybe you should have them use the yes and no. So we're becoming more proficient in using the various platforms. And again, being able to give advice on what works and what doesn't work. I know a couple of weeks ago in a particular platform, when members were using the yes and no icons, they disappeared after 10 seconds. I believe it's fixed now, but those sort of things, we notice and we take and we can give advice to organizations based on our experiences. So yes, we are learning more than to be parliamentarians and giving parliamentary advice. We are also becoming tech savvy.
Sounds like all of us, we can all share information on that cool trick that we learned today. And you mentioned that NAP serves a community of over 4,500 individuals from the United States and throughout the world. Many standards developing organizations serve a wide community as well, or are thinking of engaging more broadly with international members. Are there unique challenges when working with an international audience or cultural differences that should be considered?
Yes, besides the cultural differences, I believe one of the primary ones is making sure that the members have access. While we here in North America and the United States may not be able to do anything about access, but access is an issue for some members that live outside of the United States. Also, there are going to be time zone differences. And we expect that because they're living in a different time zone, but it may affect the participation of a member because we're here today and it's 4:10 p.m. Eastern time in the United States. They may be a day ahead of us or behind us. And sometimes the ability of international members to be able to take part in the live broadcast or the live participation efforts that are there are hindered. So we have to take into that in account. So we are recording a lot of the workshops and the sessions so that members can, at a time that's convenient for them, to be able to watch it, even though the live broadcast, the back and forth, they would not have been able to participate in. But that is something that needs to be considered. Also, the monetary exchange rate. If there are products or services offered to members, the differences in how the dollar translates in different countries and the worth of a dollar in a different country is going to be important also. And the shipping and handling and delivery of products. If your organization has books and periodicals that your members purchase, someone living internationally, the mail system may be very, very slow. I know one of our board members, I sent Christmas cards to the boards. He got his a month later. Everyone else got theirs around Christmas. So those sort of things you really need to take a look at. It may involve mailing those particular things out a little earlier, or having another method of getting those particular materials to the members, such as being able to have things that are downloadable. So all of those things you take a look at and see how you're going to help your members with that, and looking at the pros and cons of each of those.
Excellent. Yeah, certainly I have heard about the delayed postal service. So I feel bad for all of those individuals that have been made to wait, knowing that everyone else got their letters. So a good note to consider how long it takes to ship to different countries. And one final, I heard NAP will celebrate its 91st anniversary on June 23rd of this year. Tell us a little bit about the celebrations NAP has planned and how others might participate.
And well, we are planning right now, and we haven't settled on a particular activity or activities because we don't know what's going to happen with the COVID situation. Our 90th, we ended up having a electronic celebration where we had trivia and we listened to music. We were just glad to be together and to see each other because we were able to turn on our cameras and talk to each other. For the 91st, we may be playing a game of Loteria that was very popular at our training conference that we had in August. One of our members from Texas, he hosted it, and everyone had such a good time. We may have to repeat that, but we're looking at different opportunities that we'll have. It certainly will be on an electronic or virtual platform that we have the activity, but we are excited to be going in to have our 91st year. And again, our members like our social, and they like to be together. They like to see each other smile. They like to embrace for those people you've been members with for such a long time, but we haven't been able to do that, just as other organizations haven't. So any opportunity that we have to share some time and space together is appreciated. But also for members of the public, we celebrate Parliamentary Law Month during April, so that if you go to the NAP website and look at the calendar, our different units will be having different activities in April and May. And usually there's a link where you can contact someone in order to be able to attend. So members should go to www.parliamentarians.org and look on our calendar in order to see the activities so that you can visit a parliamentary unit or any session that they may have, but there's usually going to be registration so that they know who's joining us and when we have guests. Even our board meetings are for members, but you can also join. There's a page also that talks about the membership exam. So when you're going to visit the units, just tell them, Darlene, the president, said that we should come and observe and join in on your meeting, just so we can get a better feel for what parliamentary procedure is and how parliamentarians do what they do.
You heard it here, everyone. Darlene says that you can go, and definitely check out those events in April. It sounds like a great opportunity for everyone to learn a little bit more about what it is to work with a parliamentarian and how they can benefit standards development. And just congratulations on 91st anniversary. A couple months to go, but it sounds like you've got some really fun plans to celebrate. And thank you for joining us today for this great conversation. I think we've all learned some interesting facts that we can take back to our organizations and help enhance our standards development processes.
Thank you for having me.